I am joined as ever by Adam. Today in a funky shirt.
Today in my funky shirt with sunflowers or something like that. This is my California shirt. My daughters got it for my 55th birthday. I took one look at it. I said, I am not sure about that. And I put it on and I'm like, oh, this is my shirt. I like this. So there you
Excellent.
go. Yeah.
Stepping up with the fashion. Right, plugged in who you work for. Every week you come on our show and we talk about all
Yep.
sorts of reviews. I'm not going to go into the whys and wherefores of plugged in because we do that quite a lot. So let's
Sure.
just jump into some reviews.
Yeah. So Focus on the Family, which is the parent organization for Plugged In, has produced a new documentary that is now streaming. It is called Truth Rising. Have you heard about this, Andy?
I
Is this
just have.
okay?
You've just told me.
Yes. So Truth Rising is a documentary just about what it looks like for us to take a stand in a culture that is largely abandoning, a Western civilization that is largely abandoning its Judeo-Christian roots. And um, we have Oz Guinness, who is, I think, British, or no, he's not British, he's Irish. What am I thinking? Sorry. Um, but I think he is actually part of the Guinness family. He's a writer and author and an educator and speaker. And then John Stonestreet, who works with the Colson Center here in the United States. And Oz interviews a number of people in Europe, and John Stonestreet talks to people in the United States about just what it has looked like to take stands for the sake of the truth, and really being people of conviction in an age when the convictions that really form the foundation or the backbone of Western civilization are under assault from every direction. So I think it's really inspiring. And John Stonestreet talks about something close to the end of it. He says we want to be people of hope, people who understand our identity in Christ, people who have a defined calling, and people who are living from a foundation of truth. And so I think as we help our kids, I like that framework. I'm a word guy, and so thinking about what does it mean for us to be winsome, to be people of hope, to understand how Jesus shapes our identity, to understand our responsibility to find and pursue our calling in faith, just like you've done with Pure 24/7. And then what does it mean to stand firm when our convictions come under assault? So I commend it to your attention. You can watch it for free. It is at truthrising.com. And again, Focus on the Family has produced that.
We may well have got an email about that because we get quite a bit of stuff
Probably
from
so.
Focus on the Family.
Yes.
It kind of comes in, I think, email and it gets processed not by me. So we may know the royal we, but not necessarily me we. That makes
Yep.
sense.
Yep.
Cool.
So that is worth taking a look at. And then there's another Christian movie out this weekend, at least again here in the United States, called Light of the World. And this is done by some guys that used to work for Disney, and it has a very throwback, two-dimensional animated style. It's a story of the life of Christ animated film. And I think it will feel like something that you might have seen in the 1980s or 1990s, which I like. I think we've so gotten used to the 3D animation that to go back and see something that has that older style, it's kind of jarring at first. It looks kind of primitive, but I think I really love what they did with it. What's interesting about this is it really is designed for a younger audience. It's got a pretty fun, almost whimsical feel to it. It really centers on the perspective of the disciple John, who is a teenager here and kind of acts like a teenager. And he kind of acts a little bit like Peter Parker a little bit. I mean, and I think what parents may be concerned about is it's whimsical enough, and informal enough that you might think, oh man, it feels like we're a ways from scripture here. And kind of like what we've seen with The Chosen, there certainly are a lot of creative liberties taken, but I don't think there's creative liberty taken with the core theology of it. So I think theologically very solid, um, and just fun. I love seeing people who have immense talent bring that talent to bear for the sake of the kingdom. And the guys that made this movie definitely want to do that.
That reminds me very much of Inside Out. There's a clip in the film where they're going through all the archives and they have to go through this room, which is really dangerous. And they go from kind of 3D down to 2D, down to 1D, and back out the other side. And I
Yeah,
loved that scene actually because it reminded me, do you know what? It hasn't always got to be 3D because
right,
they very skillfully, as of course you would expect, made the
right.
2D look really exciting, and then the 1D and back out again, or however they did it. But I like the sound of 2D. I like the
Yeah,
sound of that.
yeah. Yeah, I think it will remind you, if you have seen it, of Prince of Egypt. I mean, it's kind of in that there's an angularity to some of the ways that they're drawing the characters, and I think it's very well done. And we often will lament the lack of faith-oriented entertainment and stories. And so this is one, assuming it's being released in Britain one way or another, whether that's in theaters or eventually streaming, uh, you don't want to miss it. It really is worth checking out.
Excellent. I just like the fact it's 2D. I
Yeah.
like stuff that looks backwards, knowing they are doing so. Occasionally, you have a film. Trying to think of one of them, but you'll get this glimpse of the 80s or
Yes.
whatever it is, and they look back and they authentically go with it, and they
Yep.
make it work. And I like that.
Yeah. Yes. And I think with that in mind, I think you'll really like this.
Excellent. Okay, where else would you like to go, sir?
Well, there's some interesting things happening in the realm of Roblox. And Roblox is sort of oh, it's a little bit, broadly speaking, like Minecraft. It's a very open world oriented online video game in which you can build and craft almost anything you can think of. It's wide open for your imagination. And you can create your own games, and then people can play the games you've created. The problem is it's also been wide open for predators and for people looking to engage with young people in unhealthy ways. And there's a lawsuit that has just been filed by the Louisiana Attorney General. And they've said Roblox is overrun with harmful content and child predators because it prioritizes user growth, revenue, and profits over child safety. Every parent should be aware of the clear and present danger posed to their children by Roblox so they can prevent the unthinkable from happening in their home. And so I think this story, and this comes from a blog that our staff person, Kennedy Unthank, wrote, just sort of getting you up to speed on what Roblox is, what this lawsuit is about. It's the kind of thing you can find in our blogs. And so it's something I want to commend to your listeners and your watchers' attention is we don't just do reviews. We really try to comment on stories that connect that sort of Venn diagram of youth culture, entertainment, and technology. That's our sweet spot. And so Kennedy does a great job of unpacking this. And Roblox, of course, is saying, but we did all this stuff to try to protect kids. The reality is there's still vulnerability there. And this story and what Kennedy has to say on it in our blog, I think is just a terrific reminder that we've got to be vigilant. And we don't need to be fearful. I think there is a difference, right? Fear creates anxiety and we end up, I think, in an emotionally unhealthy place. But we've got to be very clear-eyed about the fact that it's a dangerous world and there are dangerous people online. And if our kids are just, having access to things without our understanding what they are connecting with, things like this could happen, right? It would be possible for our children to come into contact with somebody who has a really bad intent designed for them. So great reminder.
I remember chatting to somebody who said, I just don't understand how do people who abuse kids in that way, how do they get near them? And somebody pointed out, well, it's because they're really quite nice. to start with.
Yeah.
They don't come up looking terrifying and scary with two horns and
Right.
shouting at the children. They are very, very appealing and pleasing to the eye. That's why they're able to get
Yeah.
near. So that's not beware if anybody's nice. It's just
Right.
it's very hard to prevent this without actually being actively involved. And if your children or your teenagers are on smartphones, tablets, computers, what have you, they
Right.
will be amongst people who are not who they say they are, for the very
That's right.
nature that social media itself is kind
Right.
of it's almost like a stop animation bit of our life, is it's
Right.
not showing the whole thing, it's just bits, and
Right.
we might see a bit of a story, but there's lots of bits in between we're missing. And Roblox, I sort of know of it, never played it,
Yes.
but I kind of it's going to happen, and if it's not
Yeah.
them, it'll be the next one.
Yeah. That's right. And so we have to teach our kids really basic things, right? If somebody asks you for personal information, you never give contact information out. If somebody appears to be just wanting to be suddenly your best friend, if somebody is saying they will send you anything, and maybe it starts out giving digital gifts, because a lot of these games you can exchange digital bits of this and that too, that anybody giving gifts, these are the red flags that we need to teach our kids to be aware of, that if this happens, um, you've got to be aware of it. And I think the next level is you've got people who they worm their way in, they groom our kids, and then they coax them into doing something that our kids feel shameful about. And now they have leverage, right? It's like, well, you got to keep giving me pictures of yourself, or, I'm going to tell somebody. There's a manipulation and a kind of a blackmail that happens potentially. Um, and you're right. I think for those of us, thankfully, who don't live in that world, it's incomprehensible. But I know that I served as a counselor at a summer camp for kids a couple of years ago, and we had to go through an intensive training on how to spot, uh, adults that are grooming kids. And there's a long list. I won't go into it here of behaviors that basically groom our kids to think, oh, this is a friend, this is somebody I can trust. And that's when those things, those unspeakable things can sometimes happen.
I don't know how you were taught to cross the road as a child. I remember stop, look, and listen was this simple thing.
Yeah.
You stop, you look both ways, you listen, and then you can safely go across. And I remember them coming into schools with 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds, and we had this drummed into us that
Yep.
before you cross a road, you've got to stop, you've got to look around you, you have to listen, and then proceed carefully. And the thing is, that's what we were taught to cross a road. I
Right.
don't remember any training ever about how to cross the road of social media
Yep.
safely. And I think that's a real issue.
It is. And, in his book, what is it called? The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And this is a really significant look at the correlation between anxiety, depression, and social media use. Jonathan says we've done something really interesting. We have limited radically kids' freedom in the physical world, and we're deeply afraid, that they're going to get abducted or, whatever. But we've given them almost free reign without any boundaries at all in the digital world. And he says, in fact, we probably need to do exactly the opposite. The digital realm needs to be the place where there are really deliberate and careful boundaries in place. And then we need to encourage our kids to be out in the world, learning, growing, interacting with their environment, because that's where they learn really important lessons. And he said, the point is not to be reckless, but, the reality is a child learns something when they climb up a tree and they fall out and break their arm. You
Yes.
don't want your child to break their arm, but short of something really tragic happening, when they explore their space physically, that's how they begin to learn really important lessons about the world. And he said, we've unfortunately almost completely truncated that learning opportunity because of an emphasis on safety, but we haven't put the same kind of, thought into, well, what about safety online?
Yeah.
So that's just one of the points he makes in that book that I think is really salient.
Can you give me the name of that book again?
Yeah, it's called The Anxious Generation. by Jonathan
Anxious,
Haidt, and it's Haidt.
anxious generation. It's one of those things that I just think we teach our children in some ways to do certain things, and that's really cool. I ran a website for my wife at one point, and some of the topics are quite delicate and sensitive. So we ran stuff about how to close your website down, how to hide your history,
Yeah,
because this is about DV. Then I thought, how do you use a website? And I was trying to find a guide to copy for somebody who has no idea what a computer internet browser is. Okay, and
yeah,
how do you then safely use it? And I couldn't find one, so I wrote one for the website. How do you use a website? What do we mean when we say refresh the page? If you
right.
don't know how to do that, it makes no sense. And if you then multiply that by Roblox, thousands of users, no access,
Right.
all of a sudden you've got such a smorgasbord. It's unending
Yep.
problems.
You are exactly right. You're exactly right. And those are the sorts of things at Plugged In. I mean, we've got a bunch of tutorials for video streaming platforms on how to set up parental controls. And I think a lot of us think, oh, I know I should do that, but I don't know really how. It feels overwhelming. We will coach you through that. And so we want to be a place where you can get that kind of practical information for you and your family.
Fantastic. Thank you, Adam. We're going to promote some of that stuff as well. I didn't know about the tutorials, so that's new to me.
Yes, they're about halfway down on our homepage. If people still have a homepage, just keep scrolling and you will see our tutorials, and there'll be a link. It'll take you to our YouTube page because they're video tutorials. So they're very concrete and very helpful.
Adam, I plugged in. How can we get all that? What's the website, sir?
Yeah, it's pluggedin.com, and we are a ministry of Focus on the Family.
Adam, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. We'll talk to you next week, Andy.
Pure Media, the magazine, comes out on the first Friday every month. Our next edition comes out for September on the 5th of September and will be crammed full of amazing writers, features, and columns. If that's not enough, we'll be delving deeper into the life and times of Jennifer Benson from US-based Ignescent. And if you love Lego, we'll be chatting with a man who gets to play with Lego every day. That'll be Josh from Go Chatter Studios. The digital version is always freely available online, and you can enjoy a printed subscription and get a copy in your hands too. Just head over to www.puremediathemagazine.com, where we're always on point and always in print.